Welcome to Kvetchfest. I'm Jen.
And I'm Debbie.
We're Jewish.
So we like to kvetch,
I like to complain.
and I like to discuss things.
I grew up with my mom talking about all sorts of stuff. So I thought it would be fun to bring her onto Kvetchfest so we can have more conversations about life, politics, and everything in between.
I'm a boomer.
And I'm a millennial.
Our different perspectives could lead to shared insights, differing opinions, and new realizations about the world, ourselves, and our relationship. Be part of our community as we explore more together in relationship as parent and child.
Complaining can be cathartic. So let's kvetch together. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Kvetchfest. I'm Jen.
And I'm Debbie. Today we thought it would be fun to talk about the relationship questions that come up when we're deciding whether we want to continue in a relationship, we want to end a relationship, or just our misgivings at times in our relationships, or perhaps even the things that we enjoy in relationship. I think pretty much people fall into a general idea of the shoulds and should nots in relationship, but perhaps they overthink. And we're going to see if we can help them through the overthinking about their time in relationship.
You have the honeymoon phase in a relationship, then the phase where things start to get more real, and then you get more used to that person, and then you go into however long you're with them. When you're with someone for years and years, you start to feel really comfortable, and or who knows, a lot of people feel a lot of different things when they get further into a relationship. Sometimes it's not all good things. I think generally speaking, people seem to want to have those feelings of passion or excitement throughout their whole relationship, and I don't know how realistic that is. I think you have to actively build those things in when you're with someone in a long-term relationship. This is going in a completely different direction, but we're talking about monogamous relationships, like romantic monogamous relationships, yes,
Hmm.
for the most part. So there's all different kinds of relationships now too, and I'm so curious about how people navigate relationships, like polyamorous relationships. Mom, is that something that, for folks that don't know, Mom, what polyamory is, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Okay.
I'm gonna say whether it's even in polygamous relationship, whether it's polyamory, polygamous, whether it's same sex or straight people, I feel like we all fall into the same relationship issues pretty much because we're just
Yeah,
humans with the same
totally.
hormonal things going on and wants and desires, right?
Yeah.
So you had
Yeah.
mentioned that people may start to be concerned when they don't feel the sort of excited head over heels feelings about that person that they chose and felt that way when they chose them, and now down the line they don't have that same feeling. Well, adrenaline's a really
Powerful drug.
strong, yeah, it's a powerful drug, it's a powerful hormone, and we can't stay in that state. We'll burn our hearts out, honestly. So that
Oh God.
original adrenaline you felt was pretty much lust, right? And
Mhm.
that gives
Yeah.
way to a normal rhythm in a relationship. So I wrote down, do we want adrenaline over oxytocin, or do we want oxytocin over adrenaline? And I would say oxytocin, because that's the hormone
Yeah.
that you get when you get hugged and touched and when you're in company
You
with
feel
somebody
close to
that you,
someone.
yeah, basically like. So I
Mhm.
think, yeah, it's great. We all want that rush, but and you can look back on that rush and say, "Oh,
Mhm.
but you can build things into a relationship to create that over in small snippets. But I think overall, I'd
Mhm.
rather have that feeling of genuine with a person, that
Yeah.
oxytocin that runs through you when you're with them, that you may not even recognize, but you just know it makes you feel warm and fuzzy, as opposed
Right.
to having this panting thing that you might wanna have when you first meet somebody, right?
Panting.
You
That's
know,
the word you chose?
I chose that. 'Cause I'm thinking of dogs right now and how much oxytocin they give out to us when we come home, and they're all excited to see you, and you're excited to see them. You don't really have that in relationship that often, right?
Well, it's funny because, okay, so this person who was saying that they might not get butterflies or have that head over heels feeling. Well, I feel like that's normal. And I also feel like for me in my relationship, I mean, I still get excited when my partner comes home after a long day. And I think that's a good sign. I'm not saying you always have to be excited when your person comes home, but I do feel like that's a good feeling to have. And I think a lot of these things are about kind of practicing how you want to be in a relationship with someone. Some of these feelings come naturally and some of them you have to work on, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah, it's one of those things. But what was I gonna say? You said panting. Oh yeah, I definitely feel like I would rather have that safety and stability of a long-term relationship than kind of how I dated in my 20s, which was all over the place and your heart was kind of on my sleeve and it was very precarious those years. It was fun, but it was also like, I don't know, is this going to work out? What if it doesn't work out? Am I going to be heartbroken? I have to go through that feeling again. It was just like kind of a roller coaster of emotions. And that's really hard too on your psyche. And it's also, I'm glad I experienced that too, because I think if I hadn't, now that I'm in my mid 30s, I would feel, oh, maybe I'd want to experience that now versus being able to experience dating a lot of different people and then kind of settling down with someone who I really like and building a life with that person. So, I do tend to feel that people overthink and that so much of how we think about relationships is based on what we see in the media and in movies and they're just movies are a snippet of someone's story. It's
Right.
not the
And
whole picture.
and they're manufactured too. I mean, because when you
Yeah,
write a
right.
book or write a short story or write a play or you're a screenwriter for a movie, you can orchestrate what happens to those people. They can either be their
Mhm.
best selves or not their best selves, whatever the situation is. You can create all that, which is fun because you have all this
Mhm.
massive control over navigating people's lives and relationship. But in the reality of a real relationship, you have control over your emotions. You can learn to have control over your emotions. You can learn what you're going to address and not address in a relationship. You can learn when to be quiet. It takes a lot of time and maturity to figure that out. I
It
mean,
does.
some people do it earlier than others. I think it's also the way we're socialized to we have a lot of socialization that is wound around expectations, and not to it's really hard to relinquish expectations and not use those in a
Mhm.
situation in a relationship, because when you start to relinquish those expectations, then you can just sort of let the person be who they're going to be and be who you're going to be, right, and not put all these
Yeah.
shoulds onto somebody or be disappointed because they didn't do something you thought they should do and they don't even know what it is that you expect from them. Right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just as a little example, which is not about necessary relationship, but the example of how parents sometimes go into situations with children and then are really upset that their child acted a certain way in a situation they thought was gonna be fine, but then I always say to myself, "Well, did you prime that child? Did you directly tell them what your expectation was and how you want them to
Yeah.
meet that expectation so that when you're in the situation, you can remind them when they're not doing what you told them that this was what we agreed to," right? I
Mhm.
mean, right, and so I think it's really important to set that with children. Why don't we do that with our in relationship with our partners? I mean, I think that
Mhm.
instead of having the expectation that my partner's going to react a certain way because I'm feeling a certain way, you could directly say, "This is what I would like in this situation. This is what I would need, or could you do this?" rather than hope and wish and pray that the person's going to do.
Mhm.
what you expect them to do, because if you live in that world, you're gonna be disappointed most of the time with pretty much anybody you're in relationship with, because it's not them now, it's you,
Right.
right? Right?
Yes.
So, and I also think that we have elements in relationship that we think are important, and we wonder whether or not we should have them too. And so I think one of the things that we heard with people who are asking for advice about relationships is it important that we have deep conversation, right? Is there an intellectual capacity that should happen in a relationship? And I would
Mhm.
say if you want it to, right? I mean, if you're
Right.
longing for intellectual component and your partner is not offering that, then you bring that to the table. And there's so many ways you can do it. You can do it with games, you
Mhm.
can talk about books, you can go to a
Mhm.
movie. An
Mhm.
intellectual you can even have an intellectual conversation over sports. I mean, you can decide
Yeah.
what it is that you want and bring that to your partner rather than
Yeah.
feel as if something is missing. You can
Mhm.
you can bring that in. Because if you don't bring it in and they don't bring it in, who's gonna bring it in?
Right, and then why are you complaining?
Right. Right. Or
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 you're
why
just
well, I think what you're doing is you're wondering, "Gee, I'm noticing
mhm.
there's things that are missing in my relationship. I really like my partner. I love my partner. I
Mhm.
wanna stay with this partner, but what might be missing for you that other partner may not even realize, and vice versa,
Mhm.
until you both discuss it." And that in itself is an intellectual conversation because it's about emotional intelligence. What is it that we both
Right.
want, and how can we bring it to each other?
Yeah, and how can we compromise this for a solution? Because it's gonna look different once you bring it up to your
Right,
partner. Yeah.
right. You
Yeah,
know?
no, you're right though. I feel so many things get lost because people just don't communicate. And I'm at fault for this too. I think that I've communicated and clarified, and then lo and behold, I missed a whole part that I should have prefaced with. And it's like, oh, that's weird. Is that just how my brain is? And how do I fix that? Because then it causes a lot of issues with communication for me and my partner. And then for myself too, I get frustrated. I'm like, oh, why is it like that? I also think that you're talking about, do you want to have an intellectual relationship only if you want it? Well, there's also a point in where you're very far into a relationship and things have been going well, or you've had hurdles and you're working through them, so you've really worked on your relationship and grown with your partner and all that stuff, and then you kind of come to a conclusion that there are some things that aren't ideal, and yet you're making an intentional choice to say, well, these are all the things that are working, and these one or two things could get better. Maybe they aren't working right now, but maybe there's potential for it to just be an ongoing thing that we work on. And I'm going to choose to still stay in the relationship because overall the relationship is like 80%, 60 to 80%. And I've heard someone say, another relationship advice giver, that people are looking for, you can't look for someone to hit 100% of the target. You have to
That's
look for like 60%. And when people hear 60%, they hear that that's really low. But I think honestly, it's probably more realistic to be seeking out a partner that meets 60% of what you're looking for versus 100%, right? Because you either write them all off if it's not 100, or you get frustrated if it's 20%. So just look for someone who meets 60% of the ideal characteristics you want. And the rest, and hopefully the top 3 on that, is emotional maturity, taking responsibility, and wanting to spend time with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think there whatever your core values are, if that person is hitting those core values, if they're, like you said, if they're
Yeah.
truthful and trustworthy and reliable, and,
Yeah.
you're attracted to them, and, for the most part,
Mhm.
on a given day, they have a pretty even sort of demeanor, then what else really I mean, that might sound to some people like, well, that is boring or mundane or that's not enough. But how many people are you going
Mhm.
to go through in your lifetime until you hit on the one that's going to hit all these points? And that person themselves may hit those points on a Monday and completely fail on a Thursday. And then what do you do?
Right.
Right? Because
Yeah.
our
You have to have a
emotions are
contingency plan in place.
exactly, because our emotions are on a
Yeah.
not that most of us are on roller coasters, I'm not gonna say that, but in the course of the day, people go through many different feelings, and, if your
Mhm.
partner goes through a feeling that you're not really interested in dealing with, are you gonna just write them off just because they're not able to deal with that particular feeling? If they can deal with 10 of the feelings and the other 2 they can't, I mean, I that's pretty good.
Yeah.
There's this idea that it's unfortunate because there's this idea of settling, and,
Yeah.
that
Right.
is that that makes people really concerned about entering relationships because I don't think they actually know exactly what settling means. They may have a checklist of all these things they want their partners to be, and then I say to them,
Yeah.
"Well, are you all these things? Are you just picking yourself?"
Yeah.
Because your
Mhm.
checklist is generally pretty much who you are, but I think we talked about this once before. Are you getting in you want to get involved with somebody who brings something to the relationship that's not who you are, that spices it
Right.
up or changes it up here and there.
Mhm.
You can't, being with yourself it might seem like a good idea. Person that's just like
Right.
you. In essence, maybe that's not really a good idea, right?
Right. Yeah,
So,
and I think that
you know,
people yeah, oh, go ahead.
no, no, go say.
What were you Well, I was gonna say, there's also what I hear a lot too is that relationships shouldn't be hard. And I feel like even the best ones are hard. I mean, you're talking about seeing someone, if you're lucky, for a long time, every day of your life, or nearly every day of
Right,
your life. Like,
right,
shit's
yeah,
bound to come up that you were just unprepared for, or even with the best of intentions you're unprepared for.
right,
And so I don't know. When I hear that, I'm like, oh God, this week my relationship's been more challenging, or overall it's been hard, or are we with the right people? When you hear that, you're just like, you totally overthink. Well, what do you mean by that? A relationship shouldn't be hard, but even my friendships are challenging. I mean, nothing that's worth having in your life is necessarily easy. It all requires showing up, and sometimes more consistently than others, or just what's the other word for consistent? There's a persistence. I
mhm.
think relationships are about persistence more than anything. It means showing up even on the days you don't want to, and just being like, I'm having a really tough time today, so can we not talk? No. Can you just forget I'm over here? Just let me be on the couch and we'll do girl dinner. I mean,
I mean,
there are those days, but you still have to communicate. You can't just shut the door and not come out.
right,
So I get upset when I hear that too, because I'm like, really? Are you putting the work in to your relationship, and or are you not? And that's why you're saying relationships shouldn't be hard. Like, what are we defining as hard? And I also think it's relationships are so emotional. There's not really, you can't look back in a notebook and look at the work you did
right.
necessarily. It's really
Unless you
all
do
in
keep
your
track
body
that
or
way.
in your head. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Well, some
mean,
people do. They have like relationship minutes
well, yeah, I
every
mean,
Friday.
I've had many people suggest that as something to do. My
Yeah.
stepdad used to say if we not necessarily with relationship, but with decision making, if we only had written down what the context of our decision was at that time, we wouldn't be
Mhm.
sort of upset with ourselves when maybe what we decided didn't work out the way we intended it. So it's all contextual, right? So keeping relationship minutes is a pretty good idea. It keeps people on track. If you're willing to record each other during a discussion, that might work too. I think when you said it's hard, I mean, there's Pastor Cal on Married at First Sight who says love is not just a noun; it's a verb. I mean, you have to put the work in to love somebody, right? You're choosing
Yeah.
that, and I think that when I was growing up, nobody talked like that. Nobody said you're choosing I mean, eventually, when we got more psychologically
Mm.
based and I got older, I heard more with it language, we used to call it back then. But nobody, little girls watching, and coming from my own experience, watching romantic relationships on TV or reading fairy tales or all that. That was all supposed to be. It was going to be just wonderful all the time. My problems were going to be
Mhm.
solved. I wasn't going to have to do
Mhm.
anything, and I think that is so bad because I think there's
Mhm.
many of us are still coming from those expectations that when you're in relationship your life just changes so much for the better. And we have songs about it. I can't live without
Mhm.
you. You lighten my life up. You make me a whole person. Boy, that's a big responsibility to put on one person, isn't it? They are
Mhm.
the end all and be all of your existence. When do you take
Yeah.
responsibility for you in that relationship?
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
and when do you give that person sort of grace for the kind of person they are in relationship with you? I mean, I think that's where you're
Mhm.
right. Communication has to be there where you discuss more. And it's like vetting somebody, but I don't know that we
Yeah.
do that very well because the immediate connection when we're connecting is that lust, adrenaline fueled
Mhm.
situation, and by the time that expires or sort of,
Yeah.
comes to a neutrality, we might
You're
forget.
SOL.
Yeah, well, you forget. Oh, I have to talk
You
about now I
forget.
have yeah. I didn't talk about these
Talk
things
about
and
the
now
real
I don't know
stuff.
if I want this person because it's getting boring or it's not what it was
Yeah, or you
before.
start to yeah, and in my experience, because I dated, I don't know, I mean not like so much, but enough ish. I don't know. I don't know how to really quantify that. But
Enough
in
for
my
you.
experience dating, it's like, yeah, when you have more of a long-term relationship going, you start to realize after maybe the third or fourth one, you're like, "Oh, this is stuff that I'm bringing into the relationship that's unhealthy, and this is a pattern that I'm doing versus it's the other person." So I do think there is this experience that happens when you have enough experience in a relationship or several relationships where you're like, "Oh, okay, these are my shenanigans." And I'm still dealing with that. So I have to and this person's calling me out on it more than the other person did, but it was still there. So I think that has helped too in kind of relationship resilience. See?
Yes.
Relationship resiliency. Yeah.
Yeah, pointing your finger back at yourself before you point it to your partner. Yeah, and
Mhm.
that's tough because you want it to be the other
It is
person.
tough.
You wanna be the
I
innocent
love
one.
blaming other people.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, it's so much easier to blame other people than
yeah,
myself.
I
Who
can see
wants
that.
to
I
take
mean,
responsibility?
yeah, because you have to that means that maybe you're wrong, you know,
Wrong. Yeah.
and that's a tough thing to be wrong, but,
Mhm.
yeah, I know, it's weird. I am in a now my relationship has been almost 10 years with my second husband, and I'm much older than I was when in my first marriage when we were raising you guys, and for me, it seems different. I don't know if other people who get married later in life feel like it was different. I mean, I got married at 60, and other people do this too. And I saw something on social media that says nobody should be getting married in your 60s. Well, a lot of people get married
What?
in their 60s or they're
Oh,
in
yeah.
relationships in their 60s. And that can
Mhm.
prove great if you have done work prior to that, right? Or if there was a
Right.
gap and you had time to think about yourself and do stuff
Reflect.
for yourself and right? And so I think for me, um it feels completely different because number 1, I'm not raising children with this person. And at this point in my life, I mean, some people in their 60s are still building empires and all that, but I don't really feel the need to do that. And so it takes on a whole different kind of dynamic because when you remove child rearing and when you remove an empire, let's say whether it's a business or purchasing homes or whatever it is, now it's just the everyday it gets really sort of smaller in how you're going
Yeah.
to spend your time with your partner
Mhm.
and what you're going to let's say put upon them because you have more time to think
Mhm.
about the relationship when you are not distracted by kids and jobs and all that stuff. So in a way you would think
Right.
that that would be so much easier, right? Well, you don't have all these other things. It should be easier, but in a way it's different because you've parsed down to the nitty-gritty and now you're like focused on it in a way.
Yeah.
Like, now I'm
Right.
getting older and is this a person I want to spend the rest of my life with or I am spending the rest of my life with this person and what is it going to look like as we get older? Cuz for me,
Right.
that has become a thing. Like I didn't think
Right.
about that when we met and I was in my late 50s. I wasn't really thinking about, oh, I might be 90, knock on wood, or older with this person, right? And what will that look
Mhm.
like? Now, as I'm getting close to 70, I'm thinking, oh, what is there's going to be hopefully not too many health things, but there's going to be things that are going to crop up that are not like part
Yeah.
of romantic and part of the romantic love and what we think romantic is, right? So I
Yeah.
would say to,
Mhm.
people who are wondering, I love this person, they're very sweet, they have all these qualities that I really like. I don't have that feeling all the time. You have to say to yourself, is this the kind of person that I can travel through life with and they'll have my back and they'll help me make decisions as I get older, right? Who I can
Mhm.
rely on
Yeah.
because I had this I don't know that it's an epiphany, but I think because I'm getting older, I notice older people and I feel like there's crappy relationship with older people too. But let's just say they're
Sure.
not for our discussion here, this is good relationships with older people. And I hang out at the supermarket at least once a week, get stuff, and I see older couples shopping together. And I
You
say to
hang out
myself,
there.
well, yeah, that's my hangout for an hour. I feel like, well, they're there because they're
Better than other
buying
spots.
together. As they get older, they need each other, right?
Yeah.
Right? And
Mhm.
you have to think to yourself, would I rather be constantly thinking about how this person annoys me or is this the right fit? Or would I rather have a person I know who's going to be there for me, even if they get
Mhm.
even if they get grouchy once in a while, they don't talk to me the way I wish they would talk to me. I'm not saying abusive situations or stuff like that. That's an entirely different
Right. Yeah.
conversation. But, I think for the long haul, as I get older, I start to realize that you need that the couple depend and rely upon each other in all different ways than they would have when they were younger. And maybe as
Yeah.
when you are younger, you have maybe a little lens that can propel you into the future and say, do you think the person I'm am I with a person now who already has my back and will they have my back as we get older together, right?
Mhm.
And that may
Yes.
be more about keeping a committed relationship going than just wondering whether I need to have lust or I've settled,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know,
Right.
settling can also be a positive word. It's like, oh, we settled. We
Yeah.
it's like
Mm.
this
The
Hamish.
foundation has settled. That's a good
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. It's just
Yeah.
a nice sort of comfortable
Mhm.
sofa
Kind of
relationship in a way, right?
foundational,
Right.
cozy. Yeah.
Yeah, why would you
You
wanna
know what to
let go
expect.
yeah, why would you wanna let go of a person who may not meet all your criteria, but has met most of them?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's what I
You
and this goes back to this question of how do I know a person's right for me?
mhm.
Not me, but just a general me. I think people ask themselves that all the time, and I don't know really what to say to that other than that gut thing where you're just like, well, but then you sometimes also have to move past the gut and go into just kind of realistic feelings. too. And just that's where that choice comes in, right? Where you choose to kind of be with that person if you want to, day in and
Right.
day out.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you might get into a situation because you don't know how people are going to act when if you decide to add children to a situation or if they decide to take a different kind of job or how they interact with their family. You have to see all that to know, but
Hmm.
the truth of the matter is we change over time. And
Yeah.
hopefully the couple can adjust with each other's changes over time and maybe honor some of the things that they weren't interested in maybe when they were younger, but now they're interested in when they're older and honor that.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? It's not like everything has
I
to be
do.
lockstep and you should be able
Right.
to find common ground even though your partner wants to do this and you like to do that. There's some things like a Venn
Hmm.
diagram. There's something that both of you share in
Right.
the middle
Yeah.
that should be what makes the relationship continue
Chug
and
along.
chug along and grow. There is room for
Right.
growth,
Yeah. I think
right?
so. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I kind of feel like the
Absolutely.
person who's asking that question might be the person who needs to bring something of interest into the relationship and see how it goes.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's not just on the other person in the relationship. It's on the person that is seeking more, cuz then you never know. I mean, you could get more. And then if you don't, then you have to decide, am I okay with this?
Right.
If
I
that's it.
mean, there are disappointments in life, but how many people are you going to? I mean, I read something a long time ago where this guy had dated like over 300 people and he couldn't find somebody in 300 people and the therapist was saying, "Look, just like we're saying now, you people are going to come with all kinds of things and warts and stuff, but you're never going to find the perfect
Mhm.
person. So why can't you find a person that you can sort of make your perfect person? And what I mean is not change them, but you change to the point where you are bringing your best self, and then they'll bring their best self too. I think when you treat a
Mhm.
person in a way that makes them feel loved and honored and respected, then they're just going to bring their best self to you. And that's really all you
Yeah.
want. I
I
mean,
hope.
does it matter if you both watched the same movie but got something completely different out of it in the long
Right.
run? Not necessarily. It could be
Right.
a good that could be a good intellectual conversation that you're
Well, I know I
longing
asked my
for.
partner a couple I know. I asked my partner a couple months back. I said, "Do you wanna go watch the sunrise with me one time?" And they're like, "What about a sunset?" And I was like, "Well, we see sunsets all the time." And I was like, "Well, I guess I could go by myself."
Right, but you could also I think part of the communication is, "Yeah, I know it's early and that could be a bummer, but maybe just this once because it's meaningful to me." Right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I know, but see, I play the meaningful card kind of a lot because it's all meaningful to me.
Oh my goodness.
I
You're
know.
so funny. Yeah, I haven't played that
Uh,
card. I haven't said the
you
word
haven't?
meaningful.
Never?
Really, I don't think I've said
Wow,
it
I
in
use
that
it all.
well, I'm not gonna say never, I just don't know that I've said it in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, no.
Oh, I do it all the time. I say, like, especially if it's like a social event, I'm like, oh, it would be really meaningful if you came with me.
Maybe you need to pick
It would
another
mean a
synonym.
lot to me.
Meaningful.
I would really appreciate that. I've used them all. I would really appreciate that. It would mean a lot to me. I'd like it if you could go. You owe me. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I understand. I think for me, having a large amount of time on my own between marriages helped me to be able to
Yes.
enjoy and do things by myself, so I'm not so put
Yeah.
off if my partner doesn't wanna do it, but there are times where I just really want my partner to do it,
To be
to
there.
be
Yeah,
and
to
I
do
know
it.
sometimes
Be
I
there.
might pick
So,
something that they're not as interested in as I am, but then it'll be their
mhm.
turn to do something that I'm not as interested in as they are, and that's how you
Right.
know,
Balance.
balance it out. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
That's what
totally.
it is all about.
Right,
Balance.
but yeah, so yeah, I you're right, it's hard. And the thing is
Yeah.
that people already feel their lives are hard, so they don't wanna have hard relationships, but,
Yeah.
I I don't
Tough
and
cookies. I'm
right.
kidding.
Well, I just wanna make sure that people understand that we're not talking about hard relationships where there's abuse. That's not the kind of hard we're
Well,
talking
no, of course not.
We're
No.
talking about the kind of hard where you have to compromise and communicate and,
And show up and do the
show up.
dishes
Yeah, I
and
mean,
cook
I
dinner
think a
every
word that's
day and
coming up on Instagram a lot has been curious. I don't know if you've noticed that, but a lot of relationship experts,
gurus,
whether they're therapists or whatever
experts.
they are, yes, they're using the word
Yeah.
curious. So as a way, I
Yeah.
think, to draw your partner in by
Mhm.
not getting upset or annoyed, but find out why they feel the way they do. Be
Yeah.
curious about your partner and
Yeah.
find out why. And I think that's a really good it's more positive because
It is more positive, and I could work on that. Yeah.
it helps to build
It
the
helps to
relationship,
what?
I think. To build the relationship
I
when
think
you're
so
curious
too.
about your partner.
Yeah, instead of just being like, "Why are you being like this?" Like me.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And that will
Yeah.
happen too
It's
because we
better
have
to
to
just be
train
like,
ourselves. We have
"Mhm.
to train ourselves to be different, and that's not easy 'cause, there's
Yeah.
resistance there.
No."
It's
There's
interesting.
resistance, and then we don't have a lot of time to work on ourselves necessarily. It's like the hierarchy of needs type stuff. It's like
Right,
if all your basic needs are met, but you still have to continually strive to get your basic needs met, where's the time to kind of intellectualize yourself and work on yourself? You have to do it in between all of the daily tasks of surviving,
right. Right.
and it is hard. It's really sometimes you just can't show up even for yourself in the ways you want to. So it's then showing up for other people and your children or who pets or community. Humans are asked to do a lot every day. So I do
No, that's
think it is hard to do all that within what you were saying, showing up.
Oh, yeah, no, and when you think about it, I never thought about this before because I'm a privileged person, but I never thought of the idea of self-actualizing being more for privileged people, because people who
Right.
you're saying who are having issues with housing insecurity and food insecurity and health issues and all that, they're not thinking about self-actualizing, they're thinking about surviving. And that is a
Yeah.
huge social problem because a lot of these people also have children. And so it
Mhm.
becomes a generational problem that impacts everyone. And so
Right.
that's why we have to not only think about our private relationships with each other, but what our relationships are to the people around us and all that. And
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's big. It
It is
is really
big.
big. But yeah, it's a big thing. But I will say that I know that what it feels like. I know physically what it feels like to resist something I know I should be doing in relationship, and when I feel that sense of resistance, that's like an aha moment from the universe telling me that, okay, why do you resist that? What's bothering you
Mhm.
about that, and how can you change that? And rather than
Yeah.
walk away from the relationship, you need to walk towards yourself and the relationship and figure out what that is that's bothering you. And I know for me, I
Yeah.
was just part of a talk, and the person who was giving the talk was saying that you have all these hormones that are all firing when you're in relationship, and especially when you're trying to communicate with your partner, and especially when it gets to be sort of emotional and maybe angry, and maybe walking away for a couple of minutes or maybe waiting until the next day. And I felt resistance when that person said that. And the reason I felt that way is because
Mhm.
for me, I'm it's easier for me to come back to homeostasis than other
Mhm.
people. And when I get upset or angry, I have a much easier time relinquishing those feelings and moving on. So when I hear we have to wait till
Yeah.
the next day, I'm like, that person's going to forget. We're not going to remember. It's not going to
Yeah.
happen. It's not going to get resolved. And I immediately get like verklempt about it.
Yeah.
Right. So
Sure.
I couldn't figure out at first why I felt that resistance. And later on, I thought, oh, because I don't need that time. My
Right.
partner might need 10, 15 minutes. They might need the next day. I can switch gears more quickly in that situation if given the opportunity to
Yeah.
resolve. He also,
Sure.
according to
Yeah.
Gottman, like 65% of our relationship issues do not get resolved and not to think they're going to get resolved. And maybe once you realize that, you kind of get a little bit more, have more resolve about it, that you don't have to,
Yeah,
that
I
you
think
don't
it's
have to have resolution for every single thing.
right, you just learn how to navigate those conflicts.
Better.
Then yeah, better. Thank you. Better.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna keep happening.
Yeah.
Cyclical.
But mostly, I'm going to say if you're having issues with your partner, you stay inside the partnership. Sure, therapists are helpful, but don't go to your friends and family and dig up the dirt with them. Try to keep it with your spouse or your partner and talk it out with them first. You can, if you have
Mhm.
somebody you trust and you want to talk to, that's fine. But I don't think it's a good idea to drop all this stuff on so many different people and have all these other people in your relationship giving you advice because that's just really confusing.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I agree with that, and also I love talking to my friends about my relationships. So, with anyone. So is that I mean, not and how do I say this? And they talk to me about theirs too.
Right.
I mean, we
Right.
check in about each other's relationships and how things are.
As
Is that
long as
okay?
you're not, I think, well, I would just say as long as you're not using that advice in a way that beats your partner over the head.
No.
Like,
Yeah. No, I think
Sally
it's more
said,
just about
or Sally's
yeah,
husband,
no, it's not like
Sally's
that.
partner, whatever, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not a good idea.
No, I think it's just to have another outlet to talk about,
Right.
because my friends know my partner, I know
Well,
their
yeah.
partners, all of that. So we know each other. So
Right.
it's just a nice outlet to be able to kind of navigate some things when you've already talked about it with your partner too, sometimes, or most of the
Right.
time.
No,
I'm always talking about things with my partner.
I just worry sometimes
Yeah.
that they'll have a different, they'll judge my partner if I have, this is maybe, it seems like I'm throwing them under the bus,
Oh, I already know that. Like,
you know?
I already know if I'm being judged sometimes, or because I'm told.
Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think that's difficult. I think what I would say is that feel free to, I mean, obviously you have conversations with your partner and you say what's permissible. But I think at the end of the day, friends are for talking about your relationships with and talking about what the things are that are weighing on you, job wise, career wise, whatever, all of those
Right.
things. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, you can choose whether you take your friend might give you advice, but you're in your head, you're like, I don't think I explained that correctly. Or I did explain that correctly, but that's still not helpful. But you can either say that to them or you can just take it and be like, nah, that's not for me.
Yeah.
So I
Trial
do
and error.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, it's up to you. I think I see more of it as like oh, this is what happened in my relationship. Can I talk to you about it? Because I want to hear your perspective. And then that's it. It's not like I'm out here waving a flag with my partner's issues on it, being like, oh.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And that's a good point
Yeah.
to bring up, I think maybe as we end is don't um don't make it all about your partner. It's also about
No,
you.
because I don't want to. Right.
I'm
That's the
speaking
thing. I was,
general.
and
Yeah.
a lot of the times I preface it too by saying, like, well, maybe I contributed to this. What are
Right.
your thoughts?
Right, right, right.
So,
But I'll tell you, I'd rather if I find somebody and I have who has a good moral base and we agree pretty much on the big things. It's always the small things that
yeah.
make people crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, why, who wants to date again? Wouldn't it be better to be with that person who you know loves you and you love them and work that those little kinks out rather than having to start all over again with somebody else?
That's what
'Cause
I'm saying. Oh my god, I know. I don't wanna
No.
tell someone my whole life story again. That's
Yeah,
exhausting.
yeah,
No, thank you.
right.
And I don't
So,
wanna
yeah.
find out 5 years later that you're a serial killer. No. No, thank you.
Right, exactly. So I guess I always go by the 80-20 rule. You were saying 60-40, maybe there's 75-25, I don't know. But I think if you're happy my dad used to say this is what your grandfather said to me when I was growing up. This is my dad. He said, "If you could be happy 75% of the time, consider yourself lucky." And I thought to myself and I said, "That's a C minus, dad." But you know what? Maybe he was right, 70%.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how he
I
felt
always
about
thought that was pretty
it.
good.
Yeah. I mean, and then
Yeah.
one of our episodes will be about what happiness actually is, but
Is.
we'll
Oh
just use it.
boy. We're
Yeah.
gonna get intellectual.
Oh, yeah. 'Cause that's what we do here on Kvetchfest.
That's what we do here on Kvetchfest.
Yeah. Oh my god.
We'd love to hear from you. Send in your complaints and maybe they'll be featured on the show. On some platforms, you can even leave a voice message, and you can also leave a typed message in the Q&A box on other platforms. So please reach out to us if you want advice, if you have questions. We have episodes out twice monthly, so every other week there's a brand new Kvetchfest episode. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Kvetchfest, where complaining is cathartic. And don't forget, if something's on your chest, kvetch it off.